All right, another front example, this time a female, and a much leaner body type. So you could see more of the bones. Definitely could see more of this clavicle. On the previous example I did, the pecs were covering a lot of it. In this one, the pecs are very thin, and so you can actually see that tube-like shape of the clavicle right there. So drawing that in, there's a little bit of a gap between the two clavicles as they connect to the manubrium of the sternum. And you can see areas where you could see the bottom, like right there on the inside, you can see the bottom of that clavicle, and then there's areas where the muscle connects to it, and you don't see it as well. Like right along here, this is the that clavicular portion of the pec. You don't see the bottom of it as well, and also where the deltoid connects to it, you don't see it as well. But right in between the deltoid and the pec, you can see a very clear bottom portion of the clavicle. That's because there really is no muscle attaching there, that's just bone. Okay, other side, this is the anterior portion of the deltoid, a little gap in between the two. And then right from the ending of the clavicle, got the clavicular portion of the pec, inserting almost to the same spot as the deltoid. And then you've got the lateral head. This is all bone from the scapula and the clavicle. And then the origin of the deltoid down to the insertion down here at the humerus. Okay, and I'm just trying to figure out where the anterior head ends and where the lateral starts. And I think it's right about right here. And I know that just because I know where each one originates, where it attaches to the bones. So that's why the bony landmarks are so important to know. Tricep back there, kind of a blurry arm, can't see much. She was moving it, I think, when I took the photograph. But you could still see the volumes. There's the ridge group, bicep, coracobrachialis, and then the brachialis. Okay, finding the origin of the pec here to the sternum on both sides. Now on a female, it's going to be covered up, obviously, with the breast tissue, but you could still see the pec at the top and by the armpit. You can see right here those heads, those fibers inserting into the armpit. So I definitely want to indicate that first, and then indicate the connection of the breast tissue on top of the pec. So that's really the only difference. Women have pecs. They just have breast tissue on top of the pec. If they didn't have pecs, they wouldn't be able to move their arms in the same way that men could. You got the xiphoid thing there. It's a little bump right at the bottom of the sternum. Okay, I could see the ribs. She's so lean. I'm really seeing that the rib cage popping out, mainly because she's stretching it, and all the muscles are stretched out and just exposing the shape of the rib cage. So when you can see the ribs, you definitely want to indicate it there. And then external oblique right there. This is a really fun pose. It's dynamic, and at the same time you could see the muscles. But there is a lot of folding in the skin because of the twist. And she's also kind of curling her spine inward, so a lot of folding in the abdominal area. But you could still see the volumes pretty well. So. Okay, other side of the external oblique. And this one was a little tough for me. I wasn't sure where the iliac crest was, or the anterior superior iliac spine, the ACEs point, which is the bony landmark on the front of the pelvis. I wasn't really sure where it was, and then I realized there's the sartorius right below her underwear right there. It's a really thin, long muscle, and that leads right up to it. So that told me where the external oblique is. Okay, and then just kind of starting with a gesture for the rectus abdominis, and then putting in all the little segments. There's that bottom area underneath the six-pack. Still part of the rectus abdominis. Okay, angling this top portion a little bit. The top pair of abs will be angled downward slightly, closer to the angle of the rib cage. They're not going to be horizontal. And then slowly as they go down, they angle back to horizontal. And then I'm kind of forcing these in here. You can't really see it because of the skin, but I know they're there, so I'm just putting them in. Directional lines for the fibers of the external oblique. They're wrapping around to the side of the rib cage there. These lines also really help with the gesture of this pose. If you can see it, it's this pretty strong C curve to this pose. And if I was to add the leg, which I can't see because I zoomed in, but if I were to add that leg, the left leg in, it would be an S curve because it curves back in. Okay, tensor fascia lata muscle in there. And then gluteus medius, gluteus maximus. This is probably really confusing to you guys at this point. I've always found this area to be pretty hard, especially on a seated pose where the leg is up like this, you know, where it's not extended like a standing pose, because the muscles are folded. And so it's really difficult to see. And you can't even see the attachments to the pelvis. And so it's kind of hard to track it where they are. So don't worry, we'll go over all of this stuff. All right, let's move back up to the neck. Forgot to do that. You got the sternocleidomastoid to the pit of the neck. And remember, it's got two heads. One that connects to the pit of the neck, to the manubrium, and then one that connects a little bit more laterally to the clavicle. And you got trapezius. Can't see much information of the inside of the trapezius. I do see a little bit right there actually on this side. Okay, arm indication, again, bicep. And it's pretty cool. I think I'm seeing a separation of the two heads at the top right there. That's why it's called a bicep, because two heads, bicep. And there's the brachialis, and then the ridge muscles attached right behind it, and tricep behind that. The ridge muscles swing around to the back of the thumb side of the wrist, and then this whole area here is the extensor group. And then remember that little portion right on the right there is the extensor group for the thumb. Let's see. Okay, so now I'm going to add that white color in there again, like I did with the first example. There's a lot of tendinous and bony areas in this one that I think will really help to separate these volumes and make this drawing or make this study much more clear. So I'm going to speed this up because really there's not really any new information I'm going to talk about. It's just I'm just filling this stuff in. And finally, I'll just add some of those directional lines for the fibers. Guys, I want to stress the point that this exercise is going to be really hard. For the beginners, it might be almost impossible to do much at all. Please don't let this discourage you yet. Try it, notice the areas you need to improve on, and be okay with that. Use my examples as a goal of where you can be with hard work. We're going to be doing this exercise throughout the whole course, so after each lesson, this will get easier and easier because of the information you'll learn in each lesson. Again, don't get discouraged, try it out, and be excited for the improvement that's about to come. Let's move on to the next example. Okay, thank you for watching, and thank you for sharing this with your friends. Bye-bye.